This episode is brought to you by Trailer Park Yard Games, where over 28 games are delivered directly to your party. We park the trailer, you party.
It's more normal to look away and, hey, let me actually think properly, which is comfortable and normal for them, and then I'll answer you.
Sometimes it's really weird when people make eye contact for a really long time.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
have you ever had someone shaking your hand? Have you ever had someone shake your hand for a long time and the whole time that they're talking to you, they're just staring you in the face and you're like,
Yeah. So I kind of like that. I'm good with that.
You know, and I sometimes think those are the neurodivergent people, and they've been taught
Yes.
these are the things that are important,
Exactly.
and they're doing it too much, right? Because they don't get it, and that's
like,
okay.
Yes, as if like someone was a robot and they're trying to convince you that they're not a robot. So they're just doing extra normal things just weirdly.
Well, so as you're going through this,
Let's have a chat, talk this and that with PB and Jaisy.
Well, hello. It is the PB and Jaisy podcast.
Hey.
We've got Jaisy.
It's me, Jaisy George.
And we have Bill.
It's me, it's Bill Stowe.
And then, of course, Sarah. And then today, before I introduce our guest, I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about kind of the world that we live in. We've got some challenges. We have people constantly trying to put us into a box that we may not fit in. It's a lot easier to kind of group everyone together. I kind of think of it like feeding the masses. You know, you think about like bulk mashed potatoes versus like homemade. Like I feel like anytime...
It's the easiest way to not fit in a box. You're eating too many potatoes.
Exactly. Exactly. I feel like so many people want to say all of these people are this and all of these people, and there's so much separation and division in our world, and there's so many people that try to pigeonhole you. And so while it's a blessing that we're different, our world is not always created for those, you know, those differences and those boxes. Yeah. So today I have the CEO of Shine Academy, right? And Shine, and tell me who you are and tell me about, you've got two entities there with Shine, right?
We sure do, yes. So we have Shine Behavioral LLC, which is where I have that CEO side. And then our newest venture is Shine Behavioral Academy, which is a not-for-profit. And I'm on the board there as the founder of that venture. And that is an educational environment for children with autism.
Awesome. And then tell me your name, sorry.
Oh, yeah, that would be good, right? I'm Emilye
was my fault.
Schmale, and I am here today to talk about autism and a little bit about what we do.
Okay, awesome. So I had the privilege of just meeting Emily's son, Ethan, and he is a precious gift for sure, full of energy.
Oh, yes.
Just like any typical boy would be. Tell us a little bit about Ethan and tell us how Ethan has connected you to the school and how that all works together.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he has 100% brought me into this world, this outside the box world that you just talked about a little bit. You know, I was in business for about 16 years on the marketing side, started in sales, went to marketing, and I was in the corporate world, living my life, you know, just... Of course, knew there were neurodivergent people out and about, but I didn't know a lot about it. And I had Ethan a little bit later on in life, and he was incredibly special to me, as all children are. But he was born with something called hydrocephalus, which is very unusual. It is, more people know it as water on the brain. And he had to have a shunt put in at 7 days of birth.
And what is a shunt? Sorry.
So a shunt is something, that's complicated too.
No,
so a
good.
shunt is something that it naturally we have ventricles in our brain and we have fluid that circulates around up there and goes down our spinal column. And that's part of how we operate as human beings. And when you have hydrocephalus, your body doesn't do that. It doesn't absorb the fluid for you. So basically that fluid would just build and build and build and build. Okay. So they add a shunt into the brain. They have to drill into the skull and put a little tube in there. And then there's a little mechanism that sits on the back of Ethan's head in people that do have hydrocephalus in the back of their heads. And that mechanism is what's draining the fluid that we naturally would drain.
Right. To relieve pressure, right?
Exactly. And also, you know, it's a big deal to just the way our bodies function. You know, that fluid does a lot of things for us, right? Mm-hmm. So his isn't circulating and doing all those great things. So that has its own kind of, you know, things that add to the complication there as well. But so that was 7 days of birth. So that was crazy, right? That was a lot for a new mom.
7 days.
New mom.
Oh my gosh.
New mom, first kid. Absolutely. And so, you know, autism wasn't even on our radar then. But here we were in this neurodivergent world and this outside the box world that I had to learn about. And so we were involved in something called ECI, which is a great thing that's national that our country does. And it's basically, it provides services for little kiddos that have special needs up to 3 years old. And it's cost share. So if you can't afford it, you still get all these services. So it's an amazing program. And so we were in ACI right from when he was a little guy, and they do speech, they do occupational therapy, they do whatever your child needs to thrive is really what that purpose is. So, and through that process, we learned that, things were just not quite right. Some of the things that you would typically see, we could blame it on hydrocephalus for a while, but something else was going on too. And so just before his 3rd birthday, he was diagnosed with autism. And that ECI team helped us figure that out. And then my whole world changed. It's all of a sudden, I come from the Northeast. I came down here to Texas for a great job and a great career that I loved. But I was meeting all these different people, and I was meeting all these different families and learning about this entire world of autism and special needs and what these families go through every day and what it takes to get a child the types of services they need, right, and how complicated that is. And so I left that career and I opened Shine, and I still think it's a little crazy. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure how that happened. But I knew that we needed something better. And I knew from a parent struggling, trying to find those better services, that south of Dallas, it didn't exist. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I kind of got here. It was a long answer, right?
No, I love
that's
it.
amazing.
Beautiful.
And just in you talking about it, we can obviously hear the passion. And a lot of times that's where the best things come from, is through going through it, seeing something, having a need, not having what you need, and then creating that for not just yourself, but for others.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's fantastic. Can you talk a little bit more about autism? Like, what would you like?
That's a pretty big,
yes,
sure
because
is.
I feel like now I hear a lot of, someone is on the spectrum, or someone is high functioning, or it's like, can you just, I guess, educate us a little bit on those terms and what we should know?
Sure. Yeah. It is exactly what it says. It is a spectrum, and it's a broad, wide spectrum. And we always say in the industry, and you probably hear this 100 times, no 2 children or individuals with autism are the same. And it presents itself in many different ways. There are children that have an intellectual disability, and that's part of their autism. There are children that have verbal delays, and that's part of their autism. But there are children that don't have intellectual disabilities, and they don't have verbal delays, and they're still autistic, and it presents very, very differently. And there's a huge sensory component to it. And I think that is probably one of the most important things for people to understand about autism, because our kiddos just see and hear and experience the world so differently. And it's real easy when you're out and about in the world, whether it's restaurant, whether it's shopping, whatever you do with your family, to see a kid and think, oh, that's a bad kid, or think, oh, that's a bad parent because that kid's out of control. And when you really understand the sensory processing system of those individuals with autism and how different it is, you understand that those experiences you're seeing out in the world, they can't help it. They're going through our world that is normal to us. It's not normal to them. They might have really extreme hearing. My son, for example, he knows before there's an ambulance or a police car, or sometimes it's storms, sensitivity to pressure, which could be from the hydrocephalus. I don't know. Some kiddos, they notice every single detail. Actually, I would say most people on the autism spectrum notice every single detail, but they don't make eye contact. And, that's another common thing you hear about with autism. Teach them to make eye contact, teach them to make eye contact. And the reality is, if you think about it, and I'm doing it right now, when you're really trying to focus on what you're saying, sometimes you don't look people in the eyes.
Right.
It's harder,
Sometimes the information is, you look for somewhere else.
Exactly. You're sorting through your files, right? And that's what our kiddos do all the time. And so when we're asking them, hey, make eye contact, which is what us normal folks, we want to do, right? It's not normal to them. It's more normal to look away and, hey, let me actually think properly, which is comfortable and normal for them, and then I'll answer you.
Sometimes it's really weird when people make eye contact for a really long time.
Right.
Yeah. Have you ever had someone shaking your hand? Have you ever had someone shake your hand for a long time, and the whole time that they're talking to you, they're just staring you in the face, and you're like,
yeah. So I kind of like that. I'm good with that.
And I sometimes think those are the neurodivergent people, and they've been taught
Yes.
these are the things that are important, and they're doing it too much, right? Because they don't get it, and that's okay.
Yes, as if like someone was a robot and they're trying to convince you that they're not a robot. So they're just doing extra normal things just weirdly.
Well, so as you're going through this, what can people do to help the Shine Academy? So what can the average person that's listening to this, if they said, I want to assist, I want to help, what can they do? Not just with money, but money's good, obviously. But is there time? Is there effort? Are there things that they can do to help?
I think the number one thing people can do to help is get educated. I money's great. Like you said, obviously we're not for profit, so donations, sponsorships are great. But also, time, volunteering. We're trying to do a lot of special things with our kids. You and I were chatting before we started the podcast about life skills and getting kiddos with autism and adults with autism those skills that they need. So teaching our kiddos things like how to run a pet drive. How to support our community, how to give back. Those are things that people can come to us. They can volunteer to be a part of. They can get involved. We want that. We want the community to be more involved in what we're doing. And we want them to see our kids and see the amazing things that we're doing and know them as individuals and as people. So I think educating, volunteering, getting involved any way that you feel comfortable.
Okay.
Well, and I think it's huge. I think, and you've kind of talked about it a couple of times, getting people to be aware that everyone is different. And just because someone's not like you doesn't make them any less than. Right.
Oh, no.
And I think there's a huge disconnect with a lot of children that aren't taught as children, hey, it's okay that this person is different at school or if something happens. And sometimes it's just a lack of education from the parents too, to not tell them, and we see it a lot with people with disabilities that, do I make eye contact? Do I don't? Do I stare? Do I not? Do I talk? You know what I mean? People just don't know.
People don't know what to do.
They don't know.
And so they do nothing, right? That's our nature is, well, if we don't know, we'll just hands off. And the reality is dive in. Just dive in, do anything. They don't care. They just want to be part of whatever you're doing. So.
Right. And I think that most of the time, it's just as a parent, whenever I've had friends who have children who are different than mine or things like that, I feel like they... it feels better to them instead of you just being awkward about it to just ask them like,
yes.
Hey, like what's going on with that? Or, because a lot of times parents with children that aren't, atypical or whatever will, be pretty transparent about it. And so that transparency, they're trying to invite to educate people who aren't normally around that.
Right. You're absolutely right.
So,
as parents, we all like to talk about our kids, right? It doesn't matter. We'll talk forever about our kids. So whether they're neurodivergent, whether they're neurotypical, but yes, ask, put it on the table and just say, hey, I don't know what to do. What's a great way for me to approach your child, and maybe ask, I've heard people with autism have sensory issues. Is there anything I need to know?
Yeah. Well, so what does the academy offer that you were seeing was lacking in a normal school for your son?
I never thought I was going to open a school. I never planned on opening an academy. I never planned on any of that.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, it was the parents. It really was. And I'm one of them. So if I take off my academy hat and I go back to mom, there was no school system for our kids down here south of Dallas that really had everything. There are some great special needs programs in some of the ISDs. There are some that are better than others. We are located in the city of Arlington, and in our area, there just wasn't anything for those kiddos who don't fit in that box. I love that you talked about that earlier because, there are children with autism that, as you mentioned, are high functioning, and sometimes that's the way people want to see autism, right? But that's not always the reality.
It's convenient.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And those are the kids who can go into an ISD, into a special needs program, and they can do okay. They can be educated. But it's the kiddos that are nonverbal. It's the kiddos that have struggled with behaviors. And maybe it's because the sensory system is so out of whack that they can't be in those typical classrooms and they can't handle the noise or whatever it is that's disrupting them. And so what tends to happen, especially in the large classes in the ISDs, is that the teachers are great. They love their kids. The aides are great. They love their kids, but they can't be individualized with their kids. They might want to, right? But they just can't. And
a lot of times student-teacher ratio is so crazy too, right?
Exactly. And there's some great programs that have lower ratios, but at the end of the day, they just can't meet all the needs. And the reality is, if you're teaching a group of children and you know that if you really push that child to learn, they're going to have a tantrum, a big one. And that's going to disrupt all your other kids, right? So what are you going to do as a teacher? Well, maybe you're not going to push that one as hard because you've got to do what's better for the group. And the problem is that individual doesn't learn the way they should.
Yeah.
Or it might be that that child's very shy. Maybe they don't have any behaviors. Maybe they're just really, really a wallflower and they kind of sit in the back and they don't participate. And again, they get lost in the shuffle for different reasons, but again, not getting educated. And so you asked me what Shine Academy does different. We're there for those kiddos who are nonverbal. We're there for those kiddos who have behaviors. Now, can we handle every kiddo with severe behaviors? No, we're not set up for everything. We try. And as we grow, hopefully we get better and better. But we do take kiddos that have challenging behaviors. And we do take kiddos that their voice is a device. It's not a typical voice. Right. And most programs don't. So even some of the specialized programs for children with autism don't take in those sorts of kiddos. And the ISDs struggle with them because obviously they have taken everybody. Mm-hmm. So then you've got a real mix and you can't get that individual education. So that's what we do. We have very small teacher ratio. We have BCBAs who are in our classroom every single day because we're attached to Shine Behavioral.
And what's a BCBA?
BCBA is kind of like, I like to call them the doctors of ABA, right? So in typical environments, you always have the senior provider or doctor. So master's level clinicians that provide applied behavior analysis are called BCBAs. And they go to school for a long time and take a real difficult board test to get that designation. And then they're the ones who are evaluating the kiddos, creating customized treatment plans, determining what programs they need to be running all day in therapy to meet their individualized goals. And at the end of the day, individualized is the key word. Right. So they're doing that in our school as well. So our BCBAs are working alongside our principal, our lead teachers, our para. We also have speech pathologists that work directly with us at Shine. They're not part of a third party. They work for us. They're there every day. They know our kids. Occupational therapists as well, music therapists. We have a martial artist who does just special needs kiddos who comes in to both environments.
You have a rabbit?
We have a rabbit. We try to mix it up.
Yes.
Hold on.
I've heard that this is a huge rabbit.
You can ride this rabbit.
It's a baby giant rabbit.
I'm not kidding. It's like a small child. It was like this big.
This thing is bigger than that.
It was big. Well, that's not the ears and the tail and everything. The body. Like, it was crazy.
And he's not even a year old.
Oh my goodness.
Is he going to get bigger?
He is. He's about 15 pounds and he should be about 22.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And what kind of, because that's not a normal rabbit.
He's a giant Flemish. Yeah, he's bred to be a big guy. And when we were looking at mascots for the kids, we thought, hey, bigger's kind of better. It's not a dog, but he can hop around the center and visit all our kids and be reinforcing for them when they're having tough moments. And we want something hardy because they're kids, we got 2 and 3 year olds. And he's amazing.
Is he potty trained?
He is. He's litter box trained. Oh,
I didn't even know you could do that with
wouldn't work for me otherwise.
I was about to say, because I didn't know if they just, the little things popped out.
The little pebbles?
They do that. That happens for sure.
Do.
But they mostly go in the litter box.
Oh, good. So did you have to train him or did he come that way?
They're smart. They really learn. And I will say that we did neuter him, which was we did a lot of research and a lot of studies. Was that the healthiest thing for him? And we found that it was. And so there's a lot less of that.
Good.
After neutering.
Good.
But he picked it up like a champ.
And what is his name?
That's amazing.
His name's Stellar.
Stellar.
So we had to have something that ties back to Shine and
He's
the
really
universe.
I love that.
I need to see if I can get you
the
a
kids
picture.
love him.
So the golf tournament that we did, Raphael Palmero was there, which he is an ex-Ranger. And he sat down next to my mom, and my mom was like, I keep trying to get a picture of that rabbit. He was like, me too. He was like he kept moving around trying to get a picture. It's unbelievable.
Did you all just go pick up the rabbit and bring it over to him?
No, I went and pet the rabbit, but I was kind of scared of him a little bit. I thought he was like genetically enhanced or something. Like a nuclear rabbit.
Yeah.
Anna
Like
and I were sitting there having a
Mutant
hamburger, and I looked at the parting of the Red Sea as this rabbit was coming through.
Oh, he is awesome.
But what was cooler was all the kids that were running towards the rabbit.
Aw.
Yes.
And that was so cool to see. So as the children grow, obviously there has to be care and programs for them. And I think that might be where one of the weaknesses continues as we treat the autism spectrum and work with that. What's the future of autism look like for an adult?
I would love to say rosy things. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of rosy things if you study the statistics that are out there. The future of autism for, the greater population is they tend to spend their lives at home with their families, if they're lucky enough to have that. And if they don't, or if obviously their families age, they're lost. They don't have a great great system in place. And I think Texas has taken some great steps. There's a couple communities that are in the works around here to try to solve that problem, but we have a lot more work to do.
Well, it's through you and through places like Shine Behavioral Academy that's going to make that change.
Certainly hope so.
I will say that I have seen a lot more talk about autism than I did, because that wasn't something when I was growing up that I had ever even heard of. And now I see there are TV shows that have main characters who have autism and are not just portraying someone with autism, but really have autism. And to see that is really cool. And I'm sure for you that's great to see, because
just to mainstream it a little bit,
right.
Make it more comfortable topic. I did watch Love on the Spectrum. Have you seen that?
I've seen a couple episodes.
It's like a dating show.
It's pretty darn cute.
But they teach them, how to talk and how to have a relationship, and it's really cool. But I think it's just overall it's entertaining, but it's the underlying thing is education and just making it realize that they're just people. We're all just people. So I think for me, just seeing your passion and saying, there's a need, I'm going to go fill it. That's so encouraging to me. And I can't imagine how thankful the parents are that you've done that. So first of all, thank you for answering that call. There's so many people that hear that call and don't do anything.
Yeah.
So what did that look like from you? You were in a corporate position?
I was, yeah. So I was consumer product goods, corporate position in marketing for years and years. And I left that company and I just sat down at home and I worked on a business plan.
Awesome.
And everyone that knew me thought I was kind of nuts. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. They did. They were proud of me, but they still thought I was a little crazy. Yeah. And I had some really great supportive friends, though. I had some friends that were in finance, would come over and do spreadsheets with me until the wee hours of the morning. I will say a huge shout out to the Fort Worth Mentor Program. I utilized that program within an inch of its life. I would call them almost every single day or every other day. And whatever I was working on at the time, they'd give me a mentor. So whether it was finance, whether it was accounting, whether it was small business, learning about schools, learning about medical clinics, they'd match me with the right person. I'd drive to wherever in the DFW area, meet with that person. And I met some amazing, amazing people.
No, I've never heard of that. So that's something.
Yeah. It's a great program. It's through I believe it's through the Small Business Administration, because I kind of got hooked as I kept talking to different people, and they led me down that path. And they have a woman who sits at a desk all day long and has this amazing address book on her computer of everyone under the sun who does anything you could ever
picture
dream
like
of.
a big Rolodex.
Yeah, that's I wanted to say Rolodex, but that's going to date me a little bit. So
Jaisy may not know what you mean.
It's the spinny thing.
We know.
It's a spinny thing. Yeah. So, but she's amazing, and she takes phone calls, and she really matches you with whatever you're looking for, whatever you want to learn. And these amazing people, some of them are partially retired, some of them are retired, but they meet you and they just give you their time and they give you their knowledge. Wow. And some of them got real passionate, and even though I'm not supposed to, some of them gave me their personal emails and just helped every step of the way. And I just built that business plan. I got together with Cleveland Clinic, which is a consulting partner. I definitely want to give them a huge shout out, because they have been incredibly instrumental in having me bring Shine and the Academy to fruition, and have taught us so much and shared their knowledge with us. And worked with them, kept that business plan going, hunted for real estate, which you know all about.
Yeah.
And just kept putting things together and made it happen.
That's amazing.
That's so awesome. I love that you just kept digging for answers and information, and it's technology is really great in that way. Well, sometimes you get lost, but
you had a lot of time, but you put yourself out there.
Right.
Because you had to give a lot of sacrifice to make that time.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I left in June, and we were in our space in December.
Wow.
I don't know how I did that when I think of it now.
That is fantastic.
We were talking about that with Tori that we had on Gervais. She has a child with Gervais, and she says, I look back at that time and I don't know how I did it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I went through it and got through it, but you just do.
You just do.
You just do. And
I think a mama bear comes out where it's like you got to do what you got to do. So
yeah, I always tell people, you asked about the Academy, and I say that was parent driven, and it was 100%. Shine was something I don't know how I knew how to do it, but I knew how to do it. I had this vision, and I knew it was going to work.
That's amazing.
That's some confidence too.
It amazes me. So
I'm always the opposite. I'm like, what's about to go wrong?
Well, speaking about things going wrong or things having fun, we've got this little section we call Tales from the Log Box.
So I've got tales today. I was able to, I didn't know what to share. I was like, I don't want to make some crazy story like I've done in the past.
Sometimes
they go crazy. So I reached out to one of my friends who has a son who's autistic and was like, hey, this might sound super weird, but do you have any like fun stories or like a funny story of things that have happened with your son that you'd be comfortable with me sharing? So she gave me two. One of them that I thought was pretty funny was he's older now. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's like in his early 20s. But when he was like in 5th or 6th grade, one of the things that he is very, very interested in and loves to get information on is animals, specifically like reptiles and amphibians. Like he can tell you anything about any random snake, any random frog. He knows everything about it. So he's in class and the math teacher starts giving them a math problem. And the math problem is there's a frog that's 10 miles away from a pond. On the first day, the frog can go 5 miles. On the second day, the frog goes 2.5 miles. On the third day, the frog can go 1.25. So every day it's going halfway. So the question is, how long does it take for the frog to get to the pond? And immediately her son's like, the frog doesn't make it to the pond. And he's like, what? No, you have to give me a day. And he's like, no, frogs are amphibians. And if the frog goes longer than 3 days without getting wet, he's going to dry out and he's going to die. And everybody in the class is like,
the answer
and the teacher had to then be like, okay, scratch the question.
That was awesome. Well, even Ethan, when we were taking pictures earlier, he wanted Tom to do XYZ instead of 1, 2, 3. I loved it.
Yes, I prefer that. Everyone's always doing 1, 2, 3. Let's do XYZ.
Like, change it up, Tom. You're vanilla, Tom.
And you got creative.
Everyone's doing that.
And Tom did it.
He did.
We've got this little section called Level Up, and I love the fact that we've talked about pre-prescribed boxes that people fit in, or we try to put people in. And we need to quit trying to do that. We need to quit saying that every single person we come in contact with fits in this box or this category, or they're going to do this. And I love this quote from Danny Bowman. Anything is possible. If I can do it, you can do it. And you see, Danny is on the autism spectrum. And at 3 years old, her family was told she would never amount to much. Well, here's what happened. Before most children her age finish high school, she was a world-renowned animator. She now owns her own animation company. She's an 8-year award winner at San Diego Comic-Con. And she's an excellent speaker and a college graduate. In fact, I will tell you that I get up about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm kind of on the weird side of whatever that's called.
He means old.
Yeah,
I am old.
Hey, he's outside the sleeping box.
He's getting up for breakfast. Well, when you have dinner at 2.
Yeah, I don't have dinner at 2.
Bill, it's dinner time for you. It's 1 o'clock.
It's unraveling here.
It completely unraveled, but I got to watch Danny give several speeches because I wanted to get on the internet and actually pay attention to some of the things she says. And I was very, very impressed. But you see, if Danny's parents had listened to what the professionals told her, if there weren't people who give in to Danny and give to Danny's cause, she would have been stifled. And we've got to quit putting people in boxes, and we've got to allow them to shine. So that's my level
That
up.
was pretty good.
That's
great.
Awesome. Well, and I think we just want to get the word out. We want to just be educated. Go out and learn something. If it's something that's different that you don't know, ask questions. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how we all start to connect as humans. And, just remember that we're all different, and that's a good thing,
Yes.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
I think that there was an event a couple weeks ago
Yes.
to help the Shine Academy, was there not?
I believe it was called Sarah Paget Gives Back.
That's why my
Is
hair
that-
is my
that
hair is
one?
gray right now.
Yeah.
This is the color of Bill's. I'm just kidding. It was a really good turnout. We had I think 136 golfers. So we sold out. It was our first time to ever do a tournament of any kind. We actually just became a charity this year. It was one of the things that came out of some clear thinking and got that approved, got our 501, all that good stuff. And it was a great turnout. Our goal was 40,000. We hit 38 and some change. And then this fine young gentleman.
I believe you hit 40,000. That was just part of the event.
He offered dinner. Him and Ann cooked this amazing prime rib dinner, and he offered it up on Facebook and got us the last bit of money that we needed.
It took about 11 minutes.
Wow.
Oh, I know.
Well, prime rib.
Yeah.
Home cooked prime
That's how
rib.
they get you.
Yes. So we loved being involved in that. The kids got up and thanked everyone, and we got to see the rabbit. That was that was worth it.
Yes.
It was all worth it.
It was amazing.
We have to include a picture of the rabbit now.
But I would also like to mention Jeff, because that was his baby.
Yes.
He came to me, which he knows is an error. He came to me and said that he wanted to do something, and then of course in my true nature I said, okay, let's put it on paper, because sometimes he likes to say it and then
it doesn't.
It doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But if he says it to me, I make it happen. And so it was out of his kind heart that all was created, and I just kind of ran with it. So shout out to Jeff, JHJ.
Well, it's absolutely amazing. It's been great being here today.
Yes, thank you,
Yes,
Emily.
thank you, Emily,
Very
for
much.
being
Thank you
here
all
with
for
us.
having me. It was great to
Yes.
have a chance to talk about Shine and meet all of you.
Yes.
Well, we hope to have you back in the future, hear what else is going on at Shine Behavioral, see what we can do to continue helping.
And maybe we'll bring the rabbit next time.
Yes. Oh, please.
That we can put the rabbit right here.
I'll
Right
get
there
more
in the
brave
middle.
next time.
Yes.
So with that, guys, please follow us, like us, share us, visit Emily's page. What was it? Shine
Website,
Sorry, website.
shinebehavioral.com.
Shinebehavioral.com.
We will link that in the description box below.
And they've got some really good social media stuff out there too to get involved. So with that, you guys, thank you so much, and we out.
Just had a chat, talk this and that with PB and Jaisy.